Hello and welcome to my guitar lesson. Today I'm going to go over some chord switching concepts that'll make your chord switches go real fast. They're things that pretty much will change your playing for the rest of your life if you don't know them already. And I think there's about 5 of them and they're pretty simple. What I'm going to start with is a concept I call use fingers as if they were one finger, as if they were one unit. Now, the way a lot of people approach guitar, let's say they would approach an E minor chord. They say, okay, I'm going to look at the chord chart, or the teacher tells them, okay, you put your first finger here, okay, then you put your second finger there, and then you strum the whole guitar. And that's the absolutely wrong way to approach it. It's very ineffective. The way to do this, you get 2 fingers, get them together as if they're one unit, and then we bring our hand around and we plop them both down. See, we barely had to think at all about that. We just take 2 fingers, put them together, put them there, boom, done. Okay, A would be another example of this, the A chord, okay? A lot of teachers would say, hey, there, little Jimmy, Joey, put your first finger there, and then you put your third there, and then you put your other one there, and we strum like this. No, don't approach it like that. That is so wrong. All 3 fingers together, like this, one unit, bring them in, boom. Now, this also follows, let's say you're going to make an A minor chord, okay? You can look for combinations of fingers that you can use as units. Let's say you want to learn an A minor chord. We go, okay, well, it's going to be 1, 2, and 3, right? Well, good. We put these down and that one down, boom. Just like this. Same thing with, say, E. Okay? So whenever you're learning chords, especially in the beginning elements of it, don't look at the chord chart and go, oh my gosh, I have to put this one here and put this one there and the other one here. You know, look for little clusters or clumps of notes together in the chart. For example, you'd see 3 on the chart in an A, or 2 in an E minor, that kind of thing. So that is my chord switching tip number 1. Here we go with chord changing tip number 2 that will change your playing forever. It'll make it so you can play these chords real fast. Let's say you are changing from, say, an A minor to an E. Okay, the right way to do it is notice that both shapes are exactly the same, right? Or even an E minor to an A suspended second. When you have shapes that are the same, which you will, especially with the bar chords, don't go, okay, I'm going to put this one here, and I start on A minor and pluck, 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 pluck. We just kind of do the strings. Oh, man, now I'm going to change to E. You know, this kind of thing is very inefficient. We can think back to lesson 1, the tip number 1. We have fingers that are working as one unit. And now what we're going to do is slowly, if you're a beginner, just want to practice keeping them all as that unit. Just kind of bouncing them over to where they need to go next. So there's our A minor to E. Let's see, we did an E minor to suspended second. See how that works? And this carries through the bar chords too. Let's say I wanted to do an A major bar chord to, say, a D minor bar chord. Okay, you wouldn't read the chart and go ahead and make the chord finger by finger and then take your hand off the guitar and, okay, I gotta find D minor now. How am I gonna do that? Oh, there it is. Right? so inefficient. What you would do is go, you know, you have your unit here, and you can really just move these 3 fingers over as a unit. You see how I do that? So they all stay relative to one another as you move them. So there's our chord switching tip number 2 that will change your playing forever. Here is chord switching concept number 3 that will change your playing forever. I call it common fingers. The whole deal here is you always want to look for a finger that is common to both chords when you switch to them, if you can find one. The first example I'll give you is D to a G. Here our 3rd finger is on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string in the D chord, and in the G chord it's there as well. So, of course, it's going to be terribly inefficient to go, okay, I'm going to make the D chord like this and just kind of pick at it. Okay, the chord chart says G next. Okay, I'm going to take all my fingers off and make the G. No, not at all. So this serves two purposes. One, you don't have to move the finger. It's already there. So it's going to make it to switch faster. And secondly, you can use it as leverage, okay? It's much easier to find your way around the guitar if you actually have some kind of point of contact on it when you're moving from chord to chord. I mean, obviously, this is so clear, crystal clear. If I had a D and I took it off, all of a sudden I'm coming from the air trying to find my fingers again like this. Whereas if I leave that finger down, I have a point of reference kind of for both my mind and my body to feel the way around on the guitar. We'll do another example now. Let's say we took C to A minor, okay? Our example here, our first finger is common to both chords. It would be on the first fret of the second string. So here we have A minor. And then for C, let's go like this. Actually, we have two common fingers here. Our second finger stays as well. So we have two common fingers. You're just kind of moving your third back and forth from C to A minor. So you get the idea. There we go. Common fingers. All right. Next, we're going to combine what we did with common fingers along with the concept of parallel motion we looked at earlier. That parallel motion we take a whole chord and float it. So let's say we had a G5 to a C. So we're combining two concepts now. Here I have two common fingers, right? And here, down here, I have first finger and second finger, one on the fifth string, one on the other, in this little kind of shape that looks like this. Probably it's best seen in the lower right-hand window. And all I do, I can go like that. See, I take those two fingers and just kind of keep them relative to one another and scoot them over. So when you practice, say, two chords like this, even if you're aware of the common finger principle here, don't go, okay, man, I'm going to move this one over here and this one over there, and oh man, this is so hard. Think of it and rehearse it as common fingers and parallel motion with these two fingers. And there we go. We've combined both our common fingers and parallel motion principle. All right, next we're going to explore opposite motion. So really we were just analyzing when things are opposite. Now this is probably the most difficult motion to make when you're switching chords, especially when you don't have a point of reference to stay on like a common finger. So I've intentionally chosen a kind of oddball one to demonstrate what it can be like when you don't have a common finger or parallel motion and you just have to go, you know, from one chord to the next. This switch is going to be from C to D. Okay. Now, what I mean by opposite motion, we're going to break it down to two notes. Here in C, we have our first finger on the first fret and first fret second string, and second fret fourth string. Now, see how they're in this formation. To go to D, they've got to move in an opposite direction, meaning one's coming down, right? Our second finger is coming down, and our first finger is moving up. So we've got this kind of thing, a little flip around. See how that works? So you would practice it just how I'm showing you now. If you're a beginner, very slowly, try to get to train those fingers to do that motion. Don't even strum. A lot of times, just as some pianists would practice things right hand alone and left hand alone in the beginning, you could also do that with guitar. You don't necessarily have to pluck the strings. I'm just, you know, going back and forth like this. Now, we add in the third finger, and here's where it gets interesting. Because with the D chord, as you know, we got to sneak this finger in between two of these strings. And I recommend on a switch like this, really, that you practice doing this to this first, okay? And then throw in the third finger here, once you get used to that motion, like that. And of course, I'm going to throw another one at you that isn't necessarily a fast chord switching principle, but it is a principle of building chords. if you go from your weakest finger first when you practice, okay, you can kind of build your mind and also your finger's response to train what would usually be the weakest finger and the slowest finger to kind of be the quickest, or at least, you know, catch up with the other ones. Meaning that our natural tendency for a C to D switch would be something like this. You know, we'd put these two down first, and then our weaker finger we would try to manipulate and scoot in there as beginners. But if you go like this, put this one down first and then those two when you rehearse it, you know, 100 times a day after your guitar lesson to try to get it working. I'm trying to keep my pinky out of the picture the best I can. This is really lousy technique to have your pinky out here. But the reason I'm doing it is so that you can see the other three more clearly. So if there's any guitar teachers watching this video going, that's an awful technique. Yes, it is. But people gotta see these fingers somehow. So anyway, there we go. We're moving from one to the other weakest finger first. And that way eventually this, you know, what would be this? Dominant fingers first, plus reverse training it, you know, eventually that should become all one move. And there we go. There's that chord tip. All right, my final chord switching tip is what is called guide fingers. Now, basically, I'm going to have to go into the kind of intermediate player zone here and use bar chords to demonstrate this one. Basically, there's times when there's seemingly no common finger way to get from one chord to the next. So let's say we wanted to go from a C, our example would be a C, to this G bar chord. Okay. A beginner might approach it like this. You'd make your C and then you'd go, oh man, I got to make this bar chord now. I'm going to start with my weakest fingers first the way I should and stuff like that. And then, oh man, I got to go back and I take my whole hand off the guitar and I'll go back to this one like this. All right, well, that's the wrong way to approach it. We do have kind of a common finger here if we use it right. So a guide finger is when you take a common finger and during the move of the chord switch, you don't remove it from the string. So here if I had a C, I'm going to take this super slow. It needs to end up here in our G bar chord, right? So I can keep it on that string. Even if I don't keep it pressed, I could still use it as a reference point to stay in contact with the guitar. And then even as I'm gliding through the air, you can kind of rehearse it like this while you're switching. Rehearse moving all those fingers together. So the thing you don't want to do when you rehearse it is go like this. C, get that guide finger up there, and then try to scramble, get all of them into place like this, you know. Later, you want to rehearse it like this, and then as you're moving, practice doing that. And you see how after many, many years of playing, my pinky is naturally just tucks itself into under the other one, because probably 90% of the time when you make these chord changes, it's going to land right underneath that one, no matter what the chord. So anyway, there's a good example of another great example of a famous example of a guide finger to the Stairway to Heaven. Here we have two guide fingers. And a seemingly one of those changes, if you were a beginner approaching it, you might go, okay, I got this kind of E minor thing here, then I'm going to take all my fingers off and like this, and then this is common, okay, that's easy, you know, but this one, oh man, I got to take all my fingers off, and no, don't approach it like that. You want to do, I'm just lifting this one up, and these two can guide me down as I plop that pinky down. So that's a real famous kind of guide finger riff, and there's a million of them. There's all sorts of stuff, and there's other tricks too, but those are the primary biggest tips that I have for you to get it so you can switch chords really quickly and effectively. Hope you enjoyed this one. Have a good day.